St Pancras Station, probably the most impressive of all the London termini, opened in 1868 and nearly demolished a century later. It is the terminus for the Eurostar services to the continent, the East Midlands service, the Midlands Main Line and the South Eastern high-speed trains to Kent, and a stop on the Thameslink Cross London service. When Pancras Station was built, it was within the London Borough of St Pancras. Although this borough was abolished in 1965 and incorporated into the new borough of Camden, the name can still be found on some old street signs. The parliamentary constituency of St Pancras still exists. The name has been and still is synonymous with the area. But who was St Pancras? Behind the terminus and a little way up Midland Road, there's St Pancras Old Church, a site of Christian worship for over 1,700 years. We see the church nestling in a green oasis surrounded by industry. It used to be by a river, but that's long gone, buried under the road. This is the story of the saint and of the church. Pancras was a Roman citizen who converted to Christianity and was beheaded for his faith at the age of 14 around the year 304. His mother died giving birth to him and his father died when he was 8. Pancras moved to Rome with his uncle Dionysius, where they converted to Christianity. Pancras was a zealous adherent to the religion. During the persecution of Christians by the Emperor Diocletian, he was brought before the authorities and asked to perform a sacrifice to the Roman gods. He refused and was beheaded on the Via Aurelia on the 12th of May 303. His body was recovered and buried in a sepulchre in the catacombs of Rome. His head was put into a reliquary that still exists in the Basilica of St Pancras in Rome. The legend of St Pancras Old Church, it was founded in the year 314. The story is that the site was originally a Roman encampment that served as a centre for public worship and meetings. It is one of Europe's most ancient sites for Christian worship. An altar stone dating to the year 625 was found in Victorian times and is still in use today. The church is mentioned in the Domesday Book, and there have been many rebuilds throughout its life. There have been signs of Roman, Norman and Tudor building alterations. In the 14th century, the local population largely abandoned the area for the charms of nearby Kentish town, and the church fell into disrepair. By the 18th and 19th centuries, urban expansion led to the building losing its status of parish church when St Pancras New Church was built nearby and opened in 1822. The lands around the church were favourable for development, as can be seen in the maps of the time. The Regent's Canal, built in the late 18th century, is close by. Then there was the building of the King's Cross railway terminus and its associated goods yards. The maps of the late 19th century show the church surrounded by the canal and railways to the east, the workhouse buildings to the north and the St Pancras terminus to the south. The King's Cross gasometers added to the weight of industrialisation. The old church had fallen into disuse and by the 1840s it was virtually a ruin. It was heavily restored in 1847 when many lost treasures were found buried under the tower. The churchyard had accommodated almost 100,000 burials before it closed in 1854. In the 1860s, over 10,000 graves were excavated to make way for the St Pancras rail terminus. The poet and author Thomas Hardy worked on this project. He was an apprentice junior architect aged 25 and he oversaw the task of clearing up the churchyard. The headstones of the displaced graves were arranged in a wheel around a tree. He even wrote a poem called The Level Churchyard. O passenger, pray list and catch our sighs and piteous groans, half stifled in this jumbled patch of wretched memorial stones. We late lamented, resting here on mixed to human jam, and each to each exclaims in fear, I know not which I am. The wicked people have annexed the verses on the good, a roaring drunkard sports the text, teetotal Tommy should. Where we are huddled none can trace, and if our names remain, they pave some path or porch or place where we have never lain. There's not a modest maiden elf but dreads the final trumpet, lest half of her should rise herself and half some local strumpet. From restorations of thy fane, from smoothings of thy sward, from zealous churchmen's pick and plane, deliver us, O Lord. Amen. Unfortunately, the tree has now come to a sad end. After surviving for over 160 years, it finally succumbed to a fungus and fell during a storm in December 2022. It's interesting to see the growth of foliage around the now exposed tombstones, and pleasing to see nature reclaiming the land at any opportunity. As can be expected in a churchyard, there are many tombs and monuments to the long departed. Notably, there's the tomb of Sir John Soane. This beautiful and sombre monument incorporates Soane's favourite emblem of creativity and eternity, the pineapple and oribus, a serpent swallowing its own tail. This Grade 1 listed mausoleum, designed by Sir John, was erected in 1816 following his wife's death the previous year for his wife and sons as well as himself. The Burdett Coutts Memorial Sundial was built in the late 19th century at the request of Baroness Burdett Coutts. The former churchyard was the burial ground of St Giles in the Fields, where many Catholic and French immigrants were buried. There are the names of over 70 people whose graves were disturbed during the works for the Midland Railway. It has been a Grade 2 listed building since 2016. The legend of St Pancras has been adapted throughout the ages, and there are variations to the history. Let's take to the air again and fly across Camden to Regent's Park. In medieval times, Pancras was depicted as a young soldier. By the mid-19th century, the martyrdom of Pancras was set within an arena among wild animals. In this story, a panther refrained from attacking and killing him until he gave the beast permission. There's a Victorian depiction of this on a bronze plaque located by the entrance to Regent's Park in Gloucester Place. The beast here, though, looks more like a wolf than a panther. St Pancras Old Church has had a turbulent history, and it appeared that its relevance had been lost many times. It has been derelict and abandoned a number of occasions, but it has survived into the 21st century. Today its future is more secure than it's been for a long time. The interior is at present closed as it's been renovated. Over the centuries it has lost land, but for now things are stable. The garden is enjoyed by many locals and visitors. It is a peaceful vision. The church itself, when the interior is finished, will be a place for relaxation, contemplation, and of course a place for worship.